to answer your questions, but I'm having a whole bunch of tech problems. We're supposed to have Dr. Nick here, and I couldn't hear him, which meant that wasn't going to work. As you can see, stuff on my screen is still spinning. I can't get it to load. So I'm just going to do a really short stream right now just to answer the questions that came in ahead of time, because I don't want those people to have to wait longer to get their questions answered. But we'll definitely reschedule Dr. Nick. I've sent an email to tech support to figure out why my interface isn't working quite right, and we'll just do a short stream, answer the questions that we have. If you send in something now to deltacx.com/links, we're going to hold it for next week. I just want to do a short stream, answer the questions I already got, and get out of here because this is a little bit broken. So I will give you the short answers so that people aren't waiting forever. So our first question says, in the company I'm working for, everybody's head over heels in love with the UX team and involve us in everything. There's a but. Since C-levels included everybody wants UX to be involved in every single project, sales, client meeting, we end up doing stuff I'm not sure if it's in our scope. Sometimes we just check data all the time and prepare reports. Sometimes we have meetings with clients and we listen to their requests and we check with PMs if it's possible. I don't get to do design all the time as a full-time job. It doesn't bother me, but I'm wondering if lack of real creative projects, how it'll show itself in my resume and portfolio if I were to apply to other jobs. So thanks. Definitely pros and cons here. So the pro is you're trying out all different things. You can show that you have direct sales and client facing experience, which some companies will like. Obviously, if you're expecting a lot of design work in your portfolio and you don't have a lot of design work, then that's not going to be great for you later. But it sounds like one of the problems is you're just being pulled in too many directions. So I would probably talk to your manager about your priorities. Hey, I have all of this design work to do, and I can't do the design work because sometimes I have to check data. Sometimes I have to go out on a sales call and try to help sell our company. Maybe these things shouldn't be part of my job, or should only be part of my job in like extreme cases, not constantly. What are my priorities here? And can we shift back to where I'm doing some of those things, but a lot more design? So I think this is a good opportunity to have a conversation with your manager and talk about priorities, and see if you can shift things so that you're able to do more of your design work. But either way, you'll have some interesting stories to tell your next job. Next question. What's your opinion on the idea of a designer who codes? I'm UX and I'm learning basic front end stuff in my free time just for fun and because I want to make some personal stuff on the side. But while looking up resources, I stumbled on the idea that a designer should have at least a certain understanding of how code works, and that would simplify a lot of the collaboration with devs. And it got me thinking about how little about basic code stuff is normally taught in design courses. When I started working for real, I was super confused about how to talk with the devs that were in my team because what they did was a huge black box. I don't mean designers should necessarily be able to write code or even really understand it, but maybe it would be beneficial if there is some abstract understanding of how things work for back end and front end. Basically, every designer I talk to just pick up a bit of stuff while working on the go. What's your experience on this? So I don't feel that designers need to learn to code to do a design job. Sometimes people learn to code and then they get a hybrid job and they end up doing a lot of coding, and you may or may not want that. But I've always said that we should be conversational in each other's jobs. We want other people to understand what UX is and what we do. We don't need them to do our job. We don't need them to look over our shoulder and say, hey, have you thought about designing it this way? Or, hey, I don't think I like your research plan. I don't need them to have that level of understanding of my job, but I definitely want them to understand what I do. If you don't understand what a front end developer or back end developer does, then that's definitely something I think you should at least know about. I don't think you have to learn any code because it's not like you're going to go to them and say, I think you should write the code like this. Nobody wants that. You don't want that done to you, and they don't want that done to them. So I don't think you have to learn code to that depth, but I think it's good to try to find some information or videos that explain different types of engineering jobs and get to know what different types of engineers do. What does a front end do? What does a back end do? What does a DevOps person do? What does a QA person do? Manual QA, automated QA. Just make sure you are conversational in their job and you understand what their job is, and that way you can probably have some better conversations with them. But even though I used to write HTML and CSS and some JavaScript, I never found that changed how I talked to engineers because it's not like I was going to tell them how to code it. So, yeah, I think basic conversational level stuff would be great. And we've got one more question today. Sorry about the blippy connection, but hopefully you can hear me at least a little. This is a two-part question. Part one, what's the best way to transfer the work from a researcher to a designer? For example, imagine there was a generative research project being done. After that, how should the UX researcher proceed to transfer the knowledge to the UX designer? Okay, so answering that question first, I'll break these up a little bit, even though I know they're a little hard to see. I have a whole video on creating research reports. So you might want to check that out. Just go to YouTube and look for Delta CX Research Report. It'll probably come up. And generally, what I try to do with designers is, first of all, you want them to know everything. So, what did you learn, and how are you giving that knowledge to anybody? That's going to be in your reports, artifacts, maps, spreadsheets, whatever data you're giving. You might have videos of the sessions or video clip montages or reels of different aspects of the session. The designer should get everything. Don't give them part of your research report. Give them the whole research report. In my research reports, I have lots of slides telling designers what tested well, what didn't test well, where people had problems, what they assumed, what they tried to do, where there's room for improvement. But I don't tell the designer, do it like this, move this here, or do this. I just try to say, here's how this went. Here's what went well. Here's what didn't go well. Sometimes I might make a general suggestion, but I'm not going to design for them. So I think, you have to talk to your designer and say, what's the best way for me to get you this information? What information helps you and what information isn't helpful to you at all or little? How do you want to get this information? So that's where collaboration is. That way you're not just going, hey, I got you a thing, here's your thing, and they're going, well, that's not what I need. I don't know what to do about that. So check with them. Question two, and then we're going to close for today. Let's imagine the company or organization doesn't have a designer, but they hired a researcher. If the researcher doesn't do any design, how could they proceed? Should engineering or design, not a UX designer, because we're assuming there's none at the organization in this example, be involved in making a prototype? What would be the best way for a researcher to work in these conditions? So first of all, it's okay to have boundaries. If you are a researcher and you don't like doing design, or you feel you're not good at design, or they don't want you to do design, then you don't have to do it. If they are wondering if you can do design and you're a designer or you're getting into design, then there's an opportunity for you to try some design, but it would be better if you had some sort of mentor or coach or manager who could take a look at the work and help it be better. I'm sure it would be very disappointing to do design work and not know if it's good or bad and not have someone who can check it and communicate with you on this. So, what happens when researchers have information and there's no designer? Remember, whether or not there's a designer, there's design. And so it might just be that you are giving this information back to leaders, engineers, product managers, and somebody is just doing their best to put this together. In the very old days, before we had product managers in UX, someone would tell a developer, generally what to build, and the developer would lay it out as best as they could. Sometimes it was great and sometimes not. So I think if you don't have a designer, the question is, do you want to try this work? And then if you want to try this work, is anybody helping you and guiding you and checking your work so that you're not just guessing and struggling and being frustrated? So, yeah, otherwise your information just goes back to the team and the team will figure out who's going to design this. And my thought is, you don't have to be the designer if you're not a designer. This is something that you can do to help surface the need for a designer. You can have these conversations with people and say, look, we've done the research. Now we don't have the person who's going to take it from here. I can't do that. That's not my specialty. I'm not good at it. And we don't have anybody here who can review my work and tell me how to make it better. We don't have a designer or a design manager. I would mostly be guessing, and that's not good for us. It's not good for the product. It's not good for the customers and users. Let's bring in a designer, even bring in a freelancer for 3 months, 6 months. Bring in somebody so that we can show the value of having a specialist work on this. And then make sure you get a really good UX designer, not just an artist. And, try that. Maybe this is, if you have no designers, maybe it's your opportunity to prove the value of design by showing how this is a specialized thing and you just can't say, yeah, I'll do that too.